I call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Norman Public Schools Board of Education. Ms. Sasser, will you please call the roll?
Dirk O'Hare.
Here.
Dan Snell. Cindy Nasher. Here.
Will you please stand and join me for a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Mayorino?
Yeah, I'll keep this short, but and sweet, hopefully. As most everyone should know, this is School Board Member Recognition, and I will say Appreciation Month. Every month is Appreciation Month, I believe, but it is School Board Member Recognition Month, and I'm going to read this little bit, and then I'm going to speak freely a little bit. So, in salute and gratitude to the more than 2,700 Oklahoma School Board members, January is designated as School Board Recognition Month. This is an opportunity to build community awareness and understanding about the crucial role an elected board member assumes in a representative democracy. Their commitment to service and public education affects the present and future lives of our children and our communities. This is a time for us all to collectively say thank you very much for all the work you do. I know you get paid a real high salary and get compensated immensely monetarily for this, but joking aside, the work I know you all put in behind the scenes that not many people see is very much appreciated and very much needed for all the reasons mentioned here. And here in Norman, we're very blessed to have board members who truly dedicate their time and energy and resources to support Norman Public Schools. So from me, from Cabinet, from all the staff, thank you very much for the work you do to support all of Norman Public Schools. And with that, when we're done with the meeting today, we have some appreciation plaques for you. Also, I'll allow you to grab a handful of some thank you letters to take home and read and share. I know we probably got some more coming, so we'll get those to you as well. But at the end of the meeting, after we close it down, I would like for board members to hang out so we can take a picture of you guys, if that's okay. Thank you very much for the work you do.
Thank you. Ms. McKinney? Dr. Beck? Come on down.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Mayorino, thank you for allowing me to come up and standing in for Ms. McKinney this evening. We're here for a very special recognition. The Oklahoma School Counselor Association has named Missy Smith, Lincoln School Counselor, as the Oklahoma School Counselor of the Year for 2020-2021. She represented Oklahoma at the national level for the American School Counselor Association, or the ASCA, School Counselor of the Year Award. Missy has been a Lincoln Elementary School Counselor for 7 years. Lincoln was awarded the RAMP Award, recognized ASCA model program for the 2020-2021 school year through their exemplary work of Missy in developing a comprehensive school counseling program. Lincoln is the third school in Oklahoma to receive this award. The collaboration with teachers and support staff at Lincoln speaks to the effectiveness of how she has successfully brought the comprehensive guidance program to the forefront to better serve students and their parents. Missy's leadership skills have made her known as a student advocate for equality, a visionary thinker in creating new avenues for student success and social-emotional development. Missy is currently serving as the Oklahoma School Counselor Association President. Congratulations to Missy.
Congratulations. And here in the near future, we've got to get to where we can start bringing people back. Hopefully Missy's watching online.
Yeah, I need to say something. As you know, I volunteer at Lincoln when it's possible to volunteer, and I am happy to announce that she has counseled me. And I think I am better for it. She has a great sense of humor and sense of the importance of every child, which we value in all of our counselors and teachers. Thanks.
Is there any public communication? No. Dr. Snell, can you have a motion for
Yes, I would like to move that we dispose of the routine business by consent and accept the purchase orders and approve the consent docket as listed in the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Sasser?
Dirk O'Hara.
Yes.
Dan Snell.
Yes.
Cindy Nasher. Yes.
Ms. Dutton, can you come please tell us about our audit?
I don't have a microphone.
We don't have enough.
I mean, I'm here.
Yeah, that would be better.
I'll just join Vanessa at the podium, sort of. I'll take the mic and then I'll let her have it. I know I don't need a mic. I am constantly told by people holding their ears, Brenda, it's okay, bring it down. But I will present tonight. Vanessa Dutton is an I. Bailey partner with the auditing firm that has actually done the audit for our school district as long as I've been here. So there you go. And I think I've said this to my board before and to the public before, that oftentimes there can be a question about, shouldn't you change auditors? You know, is it healthy or is it wise to continue with the same auditing firm? And the thing I'm always grateful about with I. Bailey is, first of all, they are a true partner of our school district. They are here for the board and for myself and my staff anytime we have any questions. During the year, certainly during the audit itself, but they're always available to us throughout the year. And the thing that I always feel good about saying is that there is not just one person in I. Bailey that looks at our stuff and gives it its blessing or its findings or whatever the case may be. Vanessa works with a team back at I. Bailey. We have different field auditors that come in every year during the field audit. We've been fortunate to have Tyler Jones return to our office and to help with the internal audit for the last 3 or 4 years. Remind you that Tyler has recently been brought back again for public recognition when it comes to our alternative education program that Tyler is a graduate of. So between Tyler, between Vanessa, and the other resources that they have with their firm, I'm always able to give them a call and get financial advice when it comes to transactions, anything that's going on with school finance. So I'm going to have Vanessa come up to the podium now and give you the results of the audit, which has been for this last fiscal year, 2019-20. So there you go.
Thank you, Brenda. Good evening, everyone. We have the presentation up for you, so we'll just follow that so you don't have to go through the paper documents that you received or the electronic version that you received. So this should hit the highlights. But if you have any questions at all on what you've received, just please let me know. First of all, want to discuss the scope of the financial statements. They are presented as fund financial statements. It's officially called a modified accrual basis, but it's really kind of a cash basis financial statements, and it's presented by funds. And then we have kind of a consolidated version and some adjustments that recognizes capital assets, debt, your net pension liability. That is the government-wide financial statements. We call that, the technical term is full accrual basis. And you are probably aware of this, but we're going to mention them a little bit later, that these are pretty complicated adjustments that we do. And so Brenda goes and hires another firm, Crawford & Associates, to help make those adjustments so you could get rid of that finding that we prepared financial statements. And so they were used to help do those adjustments and do the financial statement, the notes to the financial statements. Just want to reiterate that because I'll mention them a little bit later. Then we also do a compliance audit. You might hear it called a single audit. We follow the procedures provided by Uniform Guidance that's published by the federal government. And this is in order to audit your compliance with the federal expenditures of about $12.6 million. And we tested 2 programs this year, Title II and Child Nutrition. And I realized my slides didn't say something later on, but we did not have any findings in these areas, in the single audit areas. Your deliverables, there are 2 documents that you received, the financial statements, that's the bound report in paper format, and then a letter to governance, and that's to you all. Our auditor reports are we did have an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's the clean opinion. That's the type of opinion you want. And we also issue a report required by government auditing standards. It is your internal audit, or your internal control report, and we'll cover that later. And then an unmodified clean opinion on compliance. And the page numbers are referenced there. This is from page 8 of the management's discussion and analysis that was prepared by Brenda that does a prior year, current year comparison. So if you haven't looked at it already, I would recommend that you look at that. But you'll see here is just a presentation of last year to current year. And this is the income statement, or the technical term is statement of activities. And we just like to highlight that down here at the bottom, you did have an increase in net position and net income of $17.3 million compared to a net income of $3.8 million. So most of that's going to be seen in your property taxes that increased by quite a bit. And then your total expenses actually decreased slightly this year. And a lot of that will be the net pension liability actually decreased this year that has to flow through expenses, and we'll cover that on the next slide. But that's great, a net income. And again, this is the full accrual method financial statements, not your fund financial statements. And here's your balance sheet. And the main thing to point out here is your net pension liability went from $117.6 million last year to $96 million this year. So it decreased by about $21 million. So there's no control on your end on this. This is purely from teachers' retirement system. We've discussed this in the past, and for a matter of transparency, the government accounting standards require your component be on your books. Never will have to pay for that. You just have to pay your contributions, but it's still listed here to be in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles.
Vanessa, can I interrupt just a sec?
Sure.
I know the board received these electronically and has them, but Brenda also has hard copies sitting there if you'd like to see one right now. So just wanted to make that. Yep.
Okay. But no one's in favor of that net pension liability being on the books, but I do want to highlight that you do have, at the bottom is your net position or equity, and you do have a deficit in the unrestricted line, but if the net pension liability hadn't been there, that would be a positive position, about $14 million. So just like to point that out. It's not, we don't consider that a true liability of the district, but that's why it needs to be on here in accordance with GAAP.
I am sitting here biting my tongue right now, not wanting to take over the microphone and tell you what I think about that. So, just saying, just heard me before, that is not our liability that we have to show.
Yeah. I like to emphasize that to board members because it does look negative when you first look at it, but if you're aware of it, that I think it helps lighten the shock, maybe. So.
It's also a sad commentary, right? It means we had retirements that are now on someone else's books.
So, and this is on page 7 of the management's discussion and analysis. This year we did have 3 audit adjustments, and these were all on the full accrual financial statements, the government-wide financial statements, and they're all a similar theme. It's if you lease or purchase an asset with related debt, you need to recognize both that capital asset and debt on your books. And we discovered one there was an Apple lease that needed to be recorded as both a capital asset and a related debt. And that was about $4.7 million. And if I understand it correctly, I believe it's because individually you kind of viewed each one item as kind of immaterial and did not reach your threshold. But looking at that collectively and the $4.7 million that it added up to, we decided, the 3 of us, it being Norman, Ide Bailey, and Crawford, decided to put that on the books. Is that fair? That happened with the team. So that was added. We re-looked at the fiscal year 19 lease revenue bond that was issued. It was in excess of $100 million, and we looked at that, and the three of us, again, the Norman, Crawford, and I, Bailey, and determined that we needed to properly state that, and we made a $5 million adjustment to that as well. And we feel like going forward, the accounting approach on this has been corrected, and going forward, we would not expect these types of adjustments going forward. And then the last item here is we realized that the July 2019 capital lease revenue payment was made early in June in your fiscal year 19. It was not appropriately captured in your fiscal year 19 financial statements, so that had to be adjusted as a beginning of year impact as well. So again, all of these were the government-wide full accrual adjustments, and nothing was made to the fund financial statements. Any questions on those? So, okay. Again, these government-wide adjustments are not the easiest. The lease revenue bond is a very unusual transaction, and we've had to look at that every year and just every time there's an issuance of that and make sure that it's properly being recorded. Past audit adjustments, this is just something that is small enough we wouldn't have to post it to the financial statements, but large enough that we would need to bring it to your attention as oversight, and I'm pleased to let you know there were no past adjustments this year. So the findings. We did have 2 findings this year, and because the level of those adjustments that we had, as previously mentioned, it did turn out to be a finding because we had to adjust the financial statements in the form of audit adjustments. And these are the 3 adjustments we've already discussed. So again, we've discussed this with Brenda and Crawford, and I don't expect adjustments like this in going forward. The second finding is your student activity funds, everybody's favorite, right? This is on page 68 of the report. We identified 2 items in a sample of 40, so that's only 5%. But they were under the InTouch system, if I'm saying that correctly, that we found that there were the reconciliation for the daily receipts. We couldn't really tie back to see when it was received to when it was deposited. So we're not saying it wasn't timely deposited, we just couldn't follow that. So we see this as kind of a process issue that we feel like needs to be corrected. So that's why we're bringing it to your attention, and that's why we feel like it needs to be addressed. We do comment that it's not pervasive. I think this was only at the high schools and possibly even one school that we think it can be remedied. We don't think it's a big issue that we need to be addressing going forward, but we think that it needs to be corrected going forward. And this is a repeat. We did have this last year as well. Any comments on that? Or
I will say a comment on that, and Brenda and I have had conversations around that beginning last year, and it has been narrowed down and has been addressed.
Okay.
And will not be on here next year.
Okay, well, great. Well, sounds good. Well, since it was a process, normally we probably wouldn't bring this to your attention if it seemed like unusual circumstances, but just because it was a process, that's why we brought it to your attention, and it's already been addressed, so. And then this slide is just telling you our other required communications. This would be on the letter that you received, and it's just to reiterate that management's responsible for the financial statements. Again, Brenda and her team does the fund financial statements, and then Crawford is a member of management, is a representative of management to make those financial statement adjustments, to prepare that, and also the notes to the financial statements as well. So we're responsible for coming in and making sure those financial statements and those notes are materially correct. Your significant accounting policies are presented in Note 1 to the financial statements. No changes this year. GASB, that's the government accounting standards, actually delayed all of the pronouncements that were effective this year because of COVID. So there will be some pronouncements due next year. And then we're also required to tell you of estimates. Those might be a little bit more subjective, so we make sure that we look at those and make sure the management's not swaying it one way or the other. That's your allowance for property taxes, your liability for compensated absences, and then that pension liability and your other post-employment benefit liability. That other post-employment benefit is very similar to the pension, but it's much, much smaller, so you don't see it. And it's actually in an asset position, so the assets exceed the liability. So that's not as much of a heartburn as the pension liability. And that's all I have. I just want to say thank you so much to Brenda and her team for making this a successful audit. Thanks again to Crawford, and thank you so much to you all. We appreciate working on this. I know Tyler loves coming here. He's not here today because he's working on some other things, but he is available for questions, which I've got his contact information here as well, should you need to talk to either one of us. So.
I want to say thank you for the work you do. It's you know, it's hard to say. I enjoy having auditors hang out for a month in the building, going through everything, but truly I do. I enjoy the interview processes. It's not just pushing paper. There are interviews and questions and those kind of things. So I really appreciate the process, respect the process, and you know, well, I will just say I know you guys are going in and looking at more and more things each year. So. And not hesitant to let us know if there's something that needs to be corrected, because that's the only way we get better. So thank you for the work of you and your team.
Thank you. I appreciate coming here. I am also a Norman High grad, so I just wanted to point that out as well. So.
One quick question for you. On the Apple lease, it was not recorded as an asset or a liability prior?
It was not.
And so is the 4.7 million what we paid on the lease that year?
No, it's over the course of the lease agreement.
And the reason why we didn't have it booked or have it included in our assets, and I guess I should get to OCAS and the State Department recognizes, and our district recognize that we capitalize assets when the acquisition price is $5,000 or greater. Obviously, every laptop is not at a $5,000 amount, so we don't actually capitalize our computers that we're purchasing or our laptops that we're purchasing, because individually they are not capital asset. I mean, we certainly show the expense for the payment, but as far as them being on our asset schedule, they don't qualify because they're under $5,000. But as Vanessa mentioned, you know, the volume of them at that size of an amount, that payment for Apple, they viewed that we needed to have it shown as an asset and as the debt on our government-wide to show that asset and that liability. But we don't carry each one of those, and we did not put each one of those laptops in on our asset schedule when we were preparing that for the auditors because of them individually each being less than $5,000.
Will the number be roughly the same this year?
Ask me again.
Will the number be roughly the same this year? Will it be around 4.7 million for that same asset and liability for the Apple lease?
We booked the entire lease, so we've already shown the assets and we've shown the liability, and then when we make our next payment, I think it's, looking at Pete, I think our next payment is like 2.8 million. It's broken down in 3 different payments to Apple.
That's the only question. I'll take it offline after this. It seems to me like we shouldn't book the whole lease, but just the lease that amounts to that year's payments. But your accountant's no better than me, so.
Yeah, they're going to view it, and the way the accounting world views it is the entire purchase price. Much like the lease payable, our lease revenue, the payment that we owe to Bank First, we book that entire amount as an asset and as a debt as we're paying off that lease. So the same things. It's kind of a similar concept with the Apple laptops, that we book the entire amount, not just the payment itself.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I might just add something on that. There's going to be a new accounting standard that requires you book all leases on your financial statements now. So, and that was supposed to be implemented this year, but that was deferred, so it's going to be either next year. I think it might even be delayed for 2 years. So it does look strange, but it is going to be on there. So it'll make liabilities look bigger, but then you'll have a corresponding asset as well.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Vanessa. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your help. Ms. Nevels, Dr. Beck.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Migliorino.
Dr. Beck is here to assist with any questions, and he may even want to chime in at some point, but I told him he didn't have to stand right up here next to me unless we had something we wanted to ask him. This evening, I am bringing to you this agenda item for information and also for clarification. I think at this point, you've heard from our entire Title IX team at the district on various policies throughout the fall. And so this particular policy is a proposed revision to Policy 4001. Last board meeting, you heard of a new Policy 4000, and so I'm going to kind of walk us back through what we've talked about since September. In September, well, first of all, at the beginning of the school year, we knew that we had legally mandated changes that we needed to make to policy with regard particularly to Title IX. And so our first endeavor was to look at our existing harassment, discrimination, and retaliation policies, which also encompass Title IX, to see if we could make those revisions to Policy 3007 and Policy 4001. And Dr. Beck and Ms. McKinney brought proposed revisions to you in September for information only, with that attempt to revise those policies to meet those legal mandates. In between bringing that back to you for action, we realized that we had endeavored something too great. We really could not adequately revise those policies to reflect all of the legal mandates that we needed to do for Title IX. Therefore, Title IX needed to become its own policy. And that is what Ms. McKinney and Dr. Beck presented to you at the December board meeting. And what we were able to do was to create that Title IX policy, and thank you for taking action on that, which now reflects how we address Title IX for both students and employees in the Norman Public Schools. And that is what this slide shows, is exactly that, those legally mandated changes that merited a separate policy, which you all approved in December. So now I come to you with information back to Policy 4001, discrimination, harassment, and retaliation, and we have determined we want to focus that on all other protected aspects of discrimination, harassment, and retaliation as they impact students. And so this is a student-centered policy geared toward that. And the draft, the entire draft of our proposed policy for you to look at now and until we bring it back for action in February is obviously in your backup documentation. So projecting forward, I will be back in February asking for action on Policy 4001, all of those other protected aspects of discrimination, harassment, and retaliation with regard to students. And my hope is to bring you a new policy which will address those other protected areas of discrimination, harassment, and retaliation for employees. So there's where all my worlds merge, not only as the District Title IX officer, but also as the Associate Superintendent in HR. So that will be our goal. So really this was just for information and for clarification, and I'm happy, as is Dr. Beck, to answer any questions you have.
I've got a question. So as we look through this, is there somewhere in there that discusses the implementation of all of this? How you're going to present this to the teachers, to the employees?
Yes, we do have a plan for all of that, Ms. Nasher. We are going to roll that out to our administrators this month, walk them back through the Title IX policy that you all approved in December. We also will put everything out on the website in a very prominent location, because really specific to both 4000 and 4001, when you all approve it, there is a very specific way that you report, that we investigate, that we can appeal, that we issue findings for all of those types of investigations. And we want that to be not only a training piece for our educators and for our principals, we also want that readily available to students and parents in a way that's easy to find, which I also believe, going full circle, having the standalone Title IX versus the other protected areas is going to make that much easier for students and families and employees if they're affected.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Nevels. If you'll stay there and wait just a second, because we need to go back to item 6A, and I need a motion from Dr. Snell to approve our audit.
I move we approve the audit finding as presented.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Ms. Sasser, please call the roll.
Dirk O'Hare?
Yes.
Dan Snell?
Yes.
Cindy Nasher?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Nevels, back to you for the
Okay,
calendar.
so here I am to talk about calendar because we just so love to talk about calendar every opportunity that we get. I am so thankful, not only for our district calendar committee, but also for many members of the superintendent's cabinet that not only appreciate the work of the district calendar committee, but help me check that work as well. So you all approved in December the 21-22 instructional or academic calendar for us. And thankfully, the eyes of Brenda Burkett and Dr. Pete Liesenfeld found something very important for us to reconsider. A couple of years ago, it was determined that on our economically disadvantaged report, we could no longer carry forward for 30 days students to count them for free and reduced lunch status. They really wanted them to have a new application on file annually. When school districts heard that, that meant, what we thought it meant, was we could go away from making sure that that first instructional day and October 1st were exactly 30 days apart. What some people didn't realize, myself included, until those two pointed it out, there are things, while it doesn't count for state aid, there are resources and funding that we can carry those students forward for 30 days. In particular, for our school district, our E-rate funding is determined based on that. And when Dr. Liesenfeld went back and looked, if we had made that mistake this year and not had 30 days between the first day of school and October 1, it would have been to the tune of a 20% resource and funding decrease. We can't do that. We would not ever want to do that for our students. So that being said, I bring to you a revision this evening where we really have just ensured that that first day of school and October 1st are 30 days from each other, not in excess of that. So what we did, we moved the start date from a Tuesday to a Thursday, and that's how short we were. And we also were able to add a Friday in May. We were going to end school on a Thursday. We will now end school on a Friday. It'll be an instructional day, which just moves the teacher work day to the Tuesday after Memorial Day weekend. All of that movement, we were still able to maintain 173 instructional days. And a very popular topic this year, we still have 5 days built in or banked for inclement weather or emergencies. I am determined to always keep us in that 5 to 7 range, 7 being optimum and 5 being as low as I would ever want to go. So I still feel like if we had a crazy October ice storm or any other unforeseen circumstance, we would still have banked time we could go to before using the designated days on the calendar. So I ask you to take action tonight, not to rush you, but since it does impact the first day of school for 21-22, and you know parents are already looking toward that as our educators, I would ask that you take action on the revision to 21-22.
So move.
Second?
Any discussion? Ms. Sasser, please call the roll.
Dirk O'Hare?
Yes.
Dan Snell?
Yes.
Cindy Nasher?
Yes.
Okay, and now I bring you for information this evening the draft of the 2022-23 instructional academic calendar. And what I have done here, I have highlighted for you everything we have been able to do with this academic calendar. Many of those bulleted items are mandatory requirements from the state of Oklahoma, and then several of them are things we like to do in Norman. Actually, all of those bullets are things we would like to do in Norman. We just can't always do them all. So the calendar committee has obviously gotten our fall break aligned to OU Texas. We ensured that open house, elementary open house, is not the day before school starts. Never, ever, ever again. Have it on record. We did manage to preserve a 4-day weekend at Labor Day, which includes the day after the Crosstown Clash football game, should it go off as planned. A week at Thanksgiving. While we've only done it once, you could imagine it's a popular item. And so each representative on the calendar committee asked those they represent for feedback. That was prominent feedback. Please try to maintain that. We did maintain 2 weeks at winter break. And the other most popular calendar item, which was on our bucket list for years, that we just got into our calendar last school year, is the record day in January before students return. And then we do have by contract the need to have the workday at the end of the year as well as that one at the beginning. Some things that the calendar committee heard in their feedback, we would love to have a spring professional development day. Our principals and teachers would love that because it's been a while since they've been able to gather and not be rushed into the start of school or be at the very end of the year having to think 2 months ahead, to be able to do that in April. Parents love that, the feedback, because that's a long time between spring break and the end of the year without a day out. So 2 different reasons why they like it. Just weren't able to accommodate that in this calendar. And now we have put a new item on our bucket list that we hope to get into the calendar at some point. Our educators said they would love to be able to have election day off, not only just to vote when it's not at the edges of their day, but potentially even to be at the polling places and be part of that civic service in our community. So again, we looked at it. It just didn't work, although we would. This is a gubernatorial election year. But just like the record day, we will continue to look at it annually and see if we can work that in. So all of that said, this calendar has 174 instructional days, and we hit the sweet spot, 6 built-in inclement weather days before we have to use the calendar days. So again, just information only, happy to answer questions, and I'll be back next month for action.
And Holly, one of the items that they would like for the election, just to remind everybody, we do allow teachers to
Oh,
go
yes.
vote. Yes.
Yes, we do get them covered. We have our sites are so creative about that, but I definitely understand also why they would love to have that day as well. Questions? Good. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Ms. Albert, will you come tell us about policy 3003, please?
I would love to. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, and Dr. Migliorino. I am here this evening to bring information to you that we will bring back for action next month. I'd like to visit with you about our recommendations for policy revision on policy 3003. The reason that we need these changes in language, they're being proposed due to the updated teacher leader effectiveness requirements that came out of House Bill 2957. Notice you see 2016 next to that, but the reason you're not hearing about them until now is because they didn't take effect until this school year. So the changes deal with the definition of a career teacher, the opportunity for evaluation exemption, and also the need for a professional learning focus or growth plan. So let's start with the professional growth section of that policy. This information was previously not there, and so we're wanting to add the fact that every teacher or administrator, with the exception of the district superintendent, creates a professional learning focus or growth plan annually. So that piece is being added, or we're requesting to add that so that we are in compliance with what the state expects. And then the other piece, I mentioned that with House Bill 2957, the definition of a career teacher changed. And that's the definition of a career teacher for evaluation purposes. So I want to make that clear, not with their standing with the district, but with their standing for evaluation. In years past, a teacher worked three complete years, and automatically that fourth year they became a career teacher. Well, with the changes in TLE, in order for a teacher to become career, they need to work 3 consecutive full years, but then also score 4.8 or higher 2 of the 3 years on their on their final teacher evaluation. That's very difficult to do. That is very difficult to do. So another way that they can become career, and again, these are the changes in the law, a teacher can work 4 consecutive full years and score at least 2.8 or higher 2 of the 4 years. So I'm telling you this to say that typically now it takes a teacher 4 years to become a career teacher in TLE. And it's important to know that because it's all about the support that they are receiving on site. So additionally, teachers are receiving an additional year of support from their administrator. I want you also to know on this slide, it talks about a career teacher and a probationary teacher and the number of evaluations that they have. In the past, the old policy that we had, career teachers were to be evaluated once a year and probationary teachers twice a year. This changed with this new requirement. So now career teachers that are not exempt, okay, and the exemption came in through House Bill 2957 as well. If they are non-exempt, career teachers are evaluated twice a year. So they have, or I shouldn't say evaluated, observed. They are observed once in the fall and once in the spring, and then they have a final evaluation score. Probationary teachers, like I said, used to be observed twice. Now they're observed a minimum of 3 times and then a final evaluation. So more visits from the site principal, more feedback, more interaction, more dialogue. With House Bill 2957, the district also took advantage of the opportunity to exempt teachers, career teachers that were already established career, if they had scored 3.8 or higher on the last evaluation, they are exempt and only have to be evaluated once every 3 years. So this year, with that going into place, we had around 466 teachers that were able to be exempt from being evaluated this year. So especially in times of COVID, it was kind of it was a relief to teachers and to principals because it's been unique. But again, going back to the changes, just wanted our policy to actually reflect what we are doing and what is expected of us from the state. So with that, are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Zach, can you hear us?
Yes.
Zach, can you say something again?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Gotcha. Great. Well, welcome, Zach. You are on
Thank you.
for the whole world to see. Happy New Year.
Well, you can see me from the top up, right? No.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to see you. I look forward to seeing you in person soon. We've got 2 agenda items that we want to do tonight. These are the authorizing the sale of bonds, and so this is our 3rd of 7 installments from the 2019 election. So this is right where we thought we would be at this time. And so you as a board have to first authorize the sale of the bonds, so we can go out and accept bids and hopefully get the best interest rate as we can on the bonds. And so your board action item tonight, item 6F, will authorize the sale of the 26,540,000 combined purpose bonds. And then item 6G will be for the companion series, the federally taxable 2,400,000 GO bonds. And so we've got two separate series of bonds that we are going to be effectively doing concurrently. And so we have separate agenda items. And we do this on the advice of tax counsel. When we look at the use of the proceeds of the bonds, we have some that are exempt, and that means that the interest income to the holders of the bonds is exempt from federal taxation, and then a federally taxable series on the side that's smaller, where the interest income is a taxable item for those investors. And so they're separate series legally, and so we have separate agenda items for them. On item 6F, that's the combined purpose tax exempt series. The bonds will be 5-year GO bonds, which most of your bond issues are, and so the principal will pay in 6,635,000 installments in years 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the bond issue. The bids will be due by 10:30 a.m. on February 8th. I will present a summary of the bids to you at your meeting that night. And other than that, this is just kind of the formal authorizing the sale for this series. I'd be happy to answer questions. I would just add that rates are still very low, which is a good thing, and so we're optimistic that we can get a good result on each of these sales, which is obviously works in favor of your taxpayers. But this is item 6F that we'll take first, and I'll be happy to answer any questions on this one.
I move we approve the resolution authorizing the sale of the general obligation bonds as stated in attachment C.
Second?
Any questions or discussion? Ms. Sasser?
Dirk O'Hara?
Yes.
Dan Snow?
Yes.
Cindy Nasher?
Yes.
6G?
Yeah, just real quick here. So this is for 2,400,000. Same repayment structure in terms of the 5-year. And again, you can't repay your principal in year 1, which is why you pay it years 2, 3, 4, and 5. So these are going to be on the rolls, off the rolls, in an efficient manner for your taxpayers. So these bonds will pay in 600,000 installments in years 2, 3, 4, and 5. This sale, the bids will be due by 11 a.m. on the 8th, so a little bit of time in between the sales. And then again, with the award that night, as I will show you the bids that we got on that series of bonds. So otherwise, it's the same action item. You're just authorizing the sale of the bonds.
I move we approve the resolution authorizing the sale of the general obligation bonds that are federally taxable as in attachment D.
Second?
Any questions or discussion? Ms. Sasser?
Dirk O'Hara?
Yes.
Dan Snow?
Yes.
Cindy Nasher?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Zach. We appreciate your help.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, no, everyone be safe.
Take care, Zach.
Thanks.
Any new business?
No new business.
Administrative staff reports.
Yeah, I do have a brief one. We survived 2020, and I can end there. No. I want to publicly once again thank everyone who played a part in what I feel is, under the circumstances, a successful first semester. And I'm talking about our students, I'm talking about our families, and importantly, I'm talking about our staff. Doing the job that needed to be done so that our students could attend school, which we all believe is incredibly important. So I want to thank everyone for the work they did. And now we have lived through a semester of this, and we kind of know what to expect. We have something, it's not unprecedented now in what we're doing. We have something to lean into, and we have learned a lot over this last semester. And do know, no matter where you are, whether you're a staff member, whether you're a student or a parent, we will be adjusting. This is a dynamic process. There are things we're not just done, and it's not status quo. We continue to work hard. Our teachers and their councils and committees, our principals, and Echo, continue to put in the work to see, or to work on what can we do better now. And it is so nice, not that we got to live through it, but now that we actually have something to lean into that's a little bit more concrete as we make decisions. So a big thank you to everyone who played a role in creating the opportunity for our students to have school. With that being said, as school is going on, some celebrations. First, if you were able to attend, fantastic. If you weren't, you missed out, but you all know that we did the ribbon cutting for Dimensions, and what a fantastic facility behind Norman Regional on Findlay. If you haven't had the opportunity to go by and see it, wow, what a great facility. I want to thank all of those people who were engaged in that process, from our partners at Norman Regional and Norman Regional Foundation, to Justin Milner and his team, and just everybody who put work into making that a reality. Long time coming, and I feel like they have a facility that will last a long time. So just really, really, really excited about that.
And we especially want to thank the taxpayers for approving our bond, which
Correct.
made that at all possible.
That was my next deal, is our bond council and our bond committee, as they continue to meet and work. They played a huge role in helping us communicate the importance of all of the bonds. So thank you, Dr. Snell, for bringing that up. But yes, definitely the community of Norman. We have a lot of bond projects going on. If you've gone around and been to Norman North or been to Longfellow or many, many different schools, a lot of dirt being moved and more dirt to come. Just really exciting things. But just to everyone who's played a role in that, good stuff happening. I want to bring up a couple of items. Winter and spring sports some are going, some are getting ready to kick off. A lot of opportunity for people to participate and view and watch our kids participate in those things that they love, but also our coaches and sponsors and teachers out being able to just really do what they love as well with our students. So a lot of those things happening. We do have our Teacher of the Year celebration coming up, and we also have Miss Jessica Eschbach, our current Teacher of the Year, planning and working real hard for her interview. As you all know, she's one of the finalists for the State Teacher of the Year, so talked to her briefly today. And just she's studying up, and I know she's going to represent the district well. Also want to give a shout out to Norman North High School and their SPUD program. They raised, what was it, $186,000, I think, that they announced today to share with some deserving families in need. So really proud of those students who put in a lot of time with SPUD. Students Performing Unselfish Deeds is what SPUD stands for. Also, want to let everybody know, and the board will talk more about this down the road, but districts received their midterm adjustments today. We got notified this morning. Norman Public Schools, not as bad as some, not as good as we had hoped, did receive a cut in midterm. So I will say we received approximately a $4 million cut, which is exactly what we've been sharing, what Brenda forecasted. So more to come on that. And then finally, want to end with next week we have a 4-day week. Monday we will all be recognizing the Martin Luther King Day and the contributions that he has made to this world. Stephanie back here in the back is working real hard to make sure there's all kinds of resources available to our teachers. So we'll all be celebrating that day on Monday. So with that is my administrative report.
Any Board of Education reports?
I told this story before, but everybody should hear it, that some years ago, in a very difficult financial situation, Joe Sayano, after whom the building is named, threw out a number of things that we should cut or might cut. One of them was the Teacher of the Year banquet, and we decided no, we didn't want to do that. Then he came to the alternative school, and the board was absolutely clear and unanimous that that would not happen. So it's been through a lot. It's been through some really crappy buildings that we didn't even own, so we couldn't do anything with it. But I'm pleased to see it on its way in this beautiful new facility.
It is definitely one that I would hope everyone in the state could begin to try to model after.
Yeah, same follow-up for me as far as the Dimensions Academy. Just thank again to Norman Regional, to the Fleskys, to the Bond Committee, to the taxpayers, and just really as we talked about the ribbon cutting, I want to thank that team from Dimensions Academy, the teachers, the staff, the students. Watching the look in their eye and the excitement that they had, they've done such incredible work for so long in a facility that wasn't up to the standard, and now they have a world-class facility for a world-class program, and they're showing all of us what hard work and creativity can do, and we need to learn from them. And it's amazing the outcomes that they have in being creative and getting people to a goal that they need to meet, and that it's a lot of hard work to get there, and it's just very much appreciated, very, very much. Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Ms. Sasser?
Director O'Hare?
Yes.
Dan Snell?
Yes.
Cindy Nash?
Yes.
All right, and before you guys run out to watch the national championship game, I would like for maybe Alicia to take a snapshot of our board members that are here this evening with their appreciation frame